And I would say that as an elected official and as advocates alike, we all know that the act of voting is essential to human progress, to development. Voting is a cornerstone of our democracy. And it is really a fundamental issue upon which many other issues are built on. No matter what political issue that you are really passionate or you care about, there are elected officials, policymakers who are voted in and out of the office who get to be able to make those decisions. And so it is incumbent upon us as elected officials and stakeholders alike that we are constantly encouraging the activity of voting and emphasizing the criticality of voting, not just 27 days before an election, but we are doing it both in and out of your traditional election cycles. And so that is one of the reasons why the Black Caucus and Latino Caucus earlier this summer, we did our voting rights and democracy policy tour. Yes, we didn't get to all 67 counties, but we did a good job, right? And it was really designed to educate and enlighten and prepare the general public for the upcoming November election, but also to have a particular focus on jail voting, because we know that that is a segment of the population that oftentimes aren't really considered in general, but it's even more pronounced when we talk about voter demographics. And this population is often not mentioned when we talk about those demographics. And so we were very fortunate enough to stop at Centre County and Allegheny County and have a very insightful conversation with their jail administrators. And some of the things that we learned in Centre County is they have a very comprehensive and robust policy and procedure that not only was approved by their jail administrators, but it was also codified by their county commissioners, which essentially means that when the warden of that jail moves on and gets another job, or the staff at that jail get another job, that those policies and procedures are part of that institution into perpetuity. So the next person who comes into that space continues that program. And we also had the opportunity to take a tour of their facility. And I think they might be one of the only county jails in the Commonwealth that actually has a drop box in their jail. It is very impressive. A drop box that the warden mentioned to us that the warden has every key to every building, every office, and every door in the jail, except he does not have the key to the drop box, because it is a secure process that only the elections office staff can come and they can open. And then in Allegheny County, we had the opportunity to learn about their chain of custody, where they work with the county elections office to bring voter registration forms, to bring vote-by-mail application forms, and to bring people's vote-by-mail application forms that are completed, bring their ballots to the jail, let people vote, and then take their ballot back to the county elections office to process it. We also learned about Allegheny County's partnership and collaboration that they have with outside nonpartisan voting rights, voter registration groups, where they allow those organizations access into the jail to bring their volunteers into the jail to do voter registration inside of Allegheny County Jail. Now, the unfortunate reality that in Pennsylvania is that it's not really safe to assume that our other counties are coming even close to what those top tier counties are doing. But as evidenced by the All Voting is Local report that was mentioned, Ballots for All, and anecdotal evidence that we have collected over this tour, unfortunately, having county jails that aren't even meeting the basic legal needs of the folks who are in these jails. And the right to know request that All Voting is Local did went to 61 jails, I believe. And of those 61 jails, 10 jails denied the request based on not having records that were responsive. So essentially what that means is when you meet one county jail administration, you've met one county jail administration. Not everybody does it the same. And unfortunately, depending on which county jail that you might find yourself in, you might have robust access to the ballot, you might have limited access to the ballot, or you might have zero access to the ballot. And my background is not in law, so I'm not a legal scholar, but I do feel as if that is something that impacts the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, which we all know requires that government to have a valid reason for treating similarly situated people differently. That government's reason must be compelling for certain classifications such as race, religion, national origin, and voting. And the principle of the equal treatment under the law is based on the concept and the idea that the law and that justice is supposed to be blind. But we know, in reality, in this country, that every once in a while, Lady Justice picks up that blindfold, looks who is in front of her, and acts justice in a different way before putting that blindfold back on. And so we know from the data from this report that comes from the Bureau of Justice Statistics and the U.S. Census data that black residents in Pennsylvania make up 10% of the population. However, they also make up 46% of the population in our prisons and 36% of the population in our county jails. So what that essentially means is that under the Equal Protection Clause, that means that folks in certain counties are not having access to the ballot and are there being treated differently than folks in similar situations in other counties. And then you layer on top of that the fact that 36% of the folks in these county jails are African American. But there is a positive note to this, that there are things that we can do to improve these conditions. For starters, we can pass House Bill 1756, and in the short term, we can hold our county elections departments accountable and pushing them to work with their county jail administrators to implement the recommendations from the Department of State. Now, we know all across this Commonwealth that ballots are being mailed out and they're on their way to residents all across Pennsylvania, including folks in our county jails. And we know that we have so many folks in our county jails that have unfortunately lost faith in our government. They are folks who feel as if government has forgotten about them, and even worse, they feel as if government has failed them. And so what we are talking about here today are ways that we can try to rebuild that trust one step at a time in our government by showing that the political will actually does exist. And there are folks here in Harrisburg that care enough to give a damn about the rights of the folks who are in jail. And so this is an opportunity to make voting more accessible and encourage the behavior of voting in those jails so that it becomes normalized for those individuals so they can continue to do it post being in jail and into perpetuity. And so I just look forward to playing my part and doing my role to continuing to ensure that we move closer each and every election to making that a reality.